So the big question is this: how do real estate investors who don't have a ton of free time, don't have access to off-market deals, and didn't start life on third base, how do we conservatively grow our real estate business to support our families, finally leave the corporate rat race, and build a legacy? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. I'm Ed Matthews, and this is Real Estate Underground. Greetings and salutations, Real Estate Undergrounders. It is Ed Matthews here at the Real Estate Underground podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today's a really cool episode because it's something that I know a lot of experienced real estate investors are looking at and tackling. Joining me today is Dave Foster, and he is the 1031 investor and somebody that I've been following and stalking on YouTube for quite some time. So, Dave, welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks. It's great to be here. You know, that's kind of a dubious claim to fame, to be the 1031 investor.
Yeah, you better live
up.
There's
about a million other people doing these every year.
Right.
But I'll take it. That's okay.
Yeah, sure. Why not? It's so, you know, one of the things that I found interesting in kind of doing the background is your story and how you got to where you are. So the folks that haven't discovered you online yet, want to just fill them in on your story and what you're all about?
You know, it hit me the other day that my story is really a story of failure that I get to recount for everybody out there so they can learn from my mistakes, right?
Yeah.
So it's been fun to watch this last real estate cycle go. Because it's not my first one, but they're all very predictable, and it's so fun to watch people catch the bug for real estate investing.
Right.
We were no different. Back in the mid-90s, my wife and I had our first child, and we said, oh my gosh, throw the TV away. How do we find more time to spend with this little creature?
Right.
And so we wanted to get off the corporate train to maximize time. How could we do that? Well, like so many people over the last 10 to 12 years, let's go into real estate. It'll be easy, they said. How hard could it be? You'll make a lot of money, they said. So I went and I bought a duplex in Denver, Colorado, fixed it up, sold it, made a ton of money. I made enough money that I had my accountant said, well, you're going to have a lot of tax. And I paid $30,000 in tax on that. Well, that definitely put a crimp in our goal. Of trying to get off the corporate train that quick. Where the impact of that is, Ed, is that all of a sudden that if I would have had that $30,000 and been able to use that for my benefit, that's $3,000 a year, right? Basically in return, I was losing. Yep. That was 30 years ago. Yeah, that's $100,000 from one transaction.
Right.
So there's my screw up, is I paid the tax when I didn't have to. And part of my frustration with that is what led me to find 1031 exchanges. Mm-hmm. As an accountant, I'm kind of a nerd. I read the tax code. And I discovered this thing, and it had just gone through a huge lawsuit and was now going to be available to regular investors like you and I. I said, oh my gosh, this is the answer. Because now we can take the money we make off real estate plus the money we don't have to pay on tax. And then we get to use that to build more and make more money off it. Compounding interest off of the tax. Yeah. So over the course of 10 years and a couple other tweaks to the transactions that we can talk about, we took that start of our portfolio. We moved it from Colorado to Connecticut to Florida, ended up buying a 53-foot sailboat with tax-free dollars and raised 4 kids on a sailboat for 10 years off of the income of a fleet of vacation rentals, all purchased with tax-free dollars.
Wow. Phenomenal. So where in Connecticut were you? Because that's where I'm based.
Okay. We were in Stamford.
Fancy part of the state. I live in
We thought we were going to sail from there. But a year or two into it, we realized that the sun don't shine and Long Island Sound don't get warm. But we said, we're out of there.
Yeah. Good for you. Good for you. And so, you know, obviously you're an accountant and you are, talented at what you do. You know, you could have done anything. So, you know, you could have owned franchises. You could have started your own business. You could have grown your firm, you know, whatever. But why real estate as your vehicle?
Real estate, I think, has the greatest opportunities of flexibility. You can be active. You can be passive. If you have a certain liking for a certain niche where you live, you can invest locally or you can invest worldwide. The sky's the limit in terms of what you invest in, whether it's residential, or commercial, or raw land. I grew up as a Kansas farm boy, and we assimilated over the decades a farm that was made up of many homesteaded farms from back in the 1800s.
Sure.
And it was that the United States government realized the power to kickstart a nation's economy by giving people land to build on and develop. So I think all along I've kind of had real estate in my blood. But the thing that I've realized over time is that there are really just two groups of people in the world throughout all of history who have always ruled the world, always, the banks and landowners. And I'm too lazy to start a bank. So I decided
it's too hard too. It's really hard. I have a friend.
I like its flexibility. And I like that you can come in and you can go out and it works for you.
And so, when you approach a property, knowing that you're an accountant, which means most likely you're fairly system operated in terms of the way you run your business. How do you, from an operational perspective, how do you take a deal from, a broker or wholesaler, or are you talking to a property owner and deciding you want to invest in it all the way through the life cycle to the point where, it's now operating at peak efficiency and you are deciding, is this a property I trade up from or is it a keeper? And so
that's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious how your philosophy on that.
So the last part you just said, how do we know when to get out? That's kind of part two of the equation.
Yeah.
Because we're never going to go into something that's not good at the beginning. But I think there's one big calculation that I see so many investors ignore, and yet is, I think, the most powerful calculation that you've got to do when you're underwriting a property. And that is the internal rate of return. And the reason why nobody knows it is because they don't understand it. And I get it because it's weird how to calculate. But if you just think that when I buy a piece of investment property, I'm not just making the difference between my expenses and the rent. There's so much more to it.
Absolutely.
And the internal rate of return calculates all of those different aspects. So, we go on these forums and we talk to people. They say, I'm making $100 of cash flow every month. And we go, well, let's make sure you're doing that. Are you accounting for vacancies? Are you creating funds for expenses? What's your CapEx exposure? Those kinds of things.
Right.
We'll have to go into it. But then we'll also say, they might take the other route and say, this is horrible. I say, how do you know? Well, because it's only $100 a month. How much of the loan are your tenants paying off every month?
Right.
That's part of the internal rate of return, the amortization. What about depreciation benefits that you're getting as a tax write-off? So you're paying less tax because of that. And then, of course, what about appreciation? Maybe not so much what do you think is going to come, but how has your property appreciated? And so then where do you think it's going to go from there? So I love that four-prong approach of the internal rate of return. And that's how we've had. And I think, throughout my career, it's been ever so easy to generate more than 10% a year on what some would say are the worst deals.
Yeah.
Because I take into account all of those things. So when I go into a good deal, though, now part two comes up, right? How do I know when it's time to leave? And this is where the 1031 exchange can really be valuable to you because it's going to let you leave that property, but take the tax with you and the profit. And so I start with by just asking the big why. What's the big why? Why are you thinking to sell? I may have to put a new roof on this.
Right.
Well, that's looming capital expense items because you're not going to get any more money for a brand new roof than you are for a 10-year-old. But you're going to have come out of pocket for 20 or 30,000. So why not do the 1031 exchange? Sell a property that's got CapEx looming, go buy new construction. Or you might feel that the property you've got has kind of peaked out appreciation. How many people in Los Angeles or in Palo Alto sold because things were starting to stagnate at ridiculous amounts? You know where they went? They followed Elon to Austin.
Right.
And they bought cheap Austin dirt. Well, what they did was they went from an area of high appreciation that was stagnating, and they bought in areas of low appreciation where they could let the market take them up.
Right.
So another thing, is there a market you see that's going to become but isn't yet? If you've ever looked at the Smoky Mountains and vacation rentals, Gatlinburg, Sevierville, those places are crazy right now. 10 years ago, you couldn't find anybody wanting to take them on. So it was a market where everybody saw the potential. People started to see the potential, but it didn't exist yet. So they sold where they could make money. They bought in the market that was going to be, but wasn't yet. We all go through what I call the life cycle of a real estate investor. You and I are both in it. You're so much younger than me. You're probably in a different state of that. But we all start out with more energy than money, right? So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to try to buy things where we can force appreciation by swinging a hammer, by doing the things that we know. But as we start to grow as an investor, we realize that, I'm kind of starting to have more money than energy. So I'm going to use what I have and then hire what I don't. So instead of using my energy to build growth, I'm going to use my money to buy the right projects where I can hire appreciation.
Right.
And we
Operational
all lose
leverage.
energy, so we go from active to passive. Those are all the kinds of things that can go into the why.
Yeah.
But what I love is that we've been able to use the 1031 to find the why, satisfy the why, but save the day.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
A motivated seller just filled out your web form. If you call back within 5 minutes, you're nearly 4 times more likely to get that seller appointment. But delay your follow-up by even just 10 minutes? Forget it. You're toast. Ella Vista Connect calls that lead back in 60 seconds, qualifies them, and schedules your meeting. Find out how much slow follow-up is costing you. Free calculator at ellavista.com/underground.
Right on. So when you look at a market, like, I think you mentioned Gatlinburg, which is West Virginia, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Tennessee, but they'll all.
Oh, Tennessee. Well, I'm a northerner, so anything below the
it's all the same area.
It's all one place, right? Due respect to the Southerners who are listening right now. I'm curious about, it's all about pattern recognition for us, right? Where is the real estate in the cycle that we're currently invested in? Like you were saying, is it starting to stagnate? Has it reached a maturity level that makes sense to move on to another appreciating market? The thing that I'm always, folks ask me, and I'm always asking, folks like you, what are the patterns? What are the things, the demographics, the data that you look at to decide that, Tennessee is a place where you should move your money, and you're going to take your Palo Alto money, sell out there and move it 1031 exchange. And I'm going to get into the 1031 exchange thing momentarily. But I'm really curious about how you evaluate a market and determine if it's on the upcome.
That is a great question. I think it's different for different sectors of real estate.
Okay.
If you're into residential investing, single family, multifamily, that kind of thing, there's no better thing to look for than population trending demographics. Where are people moving?
Right.
Because wherever they're moving, they're going to need places to live. Bottom line. It could also be an event that is causing a temporary shortage. The Smokies are a great example. In 14, there was a huge fire, destroyed 80% of the rental stock in these vacation rental towns. And I had people asking me, is it done? Is it never going to come back? What's going to happen? Well, the answer is when you've got a population within 3 or 4 hours of there of multiple millions of property, it's not going to lose its attraction as a rental destination.
Right.
But there's going to be more competition or less competition for you to deal with in trying to create rentals. So it's a great chance to go buy some. I hate to think of it as ambulance chasing, but let's face it, I've rehabbed a ton of hurricane houses in Florida.
Yeah.
Where the hurricane damaged them, people lost hope, they took their settlements, they walked away. But I knew that the basics of Florida are always going to be there.
Yeah,
there's going to be sunshine, palm trees, and people that want to come in.
Absolutely.
So for events like that.
Yeah. So you're looking, obviously the population trends are really important. The other thing that I always tend to look for is the jobs, right? Because,
Absolutely.
and it's a couple of different factors, right? It's not only is it what's the unemployment rate look like, but also job diversity. Like, is it an army base that's employing 90% of the population, or is it 15 different major corporations that are employing, 8 to 10 to maybe 12% of the population individually, right? And so if you leave Hewlett Packard, you can go work at General Electric, for instance. And so, those are definitely things that I look for, and obviously it's the other things are around, can the population afford the rents that we're projecting? Right. And so I live by the 3X rule minimum. And, so if you're paying $1,000 a month in rent, you, as a resident of one of our buildings, you have to make $3,000 a month to cover that expense. We don't want to set people up to fail. Right. Because, 2024, maybe 2025, we're looking at some version of a recession. Right. And so recessions hit, people lose their jobs, and, you want to make sure that you've got, residents who are going to be solid and capable of weathering whatever storm's coming our way. All right. So 1031 exchanges. So I want you to walk me through the mechanics of it as if I'm a fifth grader. All right. Explain it to me. I've done one in my life and it was actually phenomenally successful, but I know that it's still kind of a rare thing, particularly here in the Northeast for whatever reason. I don't know a lot of investors who take advantage of them. So, but they should. And so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to meet you today or have you on the show. So can you step us through the process that you take a property through when you decide, okay, it's time to trade up? What do you do?
Sure. Well, the nice thing is that for you, the investor, you don't do anything different than you normally would. You answer the why question, you decide it's time to sell this property. So you're going to use all of your regular professionals. You'll hire whoever it is to fix the property up, get it ready. You'll hire a realtor to list it and market it.
Yep.
You'll get the property under contract. And in the Northeast, it's going to go to a real estate attorney for closing of escrow. For most of the country, they use title companies. Same difference. It's whoever's going to close escrow.
Yep.
Now, it is right at that point in time that you'll start to see the 1031 because the IRS does not let you do it yourself. You have to use the services of an unrelated third party called the qualified intermediary. They cannot do anything for you other than just the administration of the 1031 exchange. So I'm kind of like Switzerland. I'm everybody's buddy because all I'm going to do is the 1031. So a realtor doesn't fear me, title company, attorney don't fear it. We're just part of the process that's there. But we document the 1031 exchange on the settlement statements for both the sale and the purchase. And then we have to hold the proceeds. And that's the most critical thing that will destroy a 1031 exchange.
Right.
Because the IRS says you cannot touch the money. If you touch it, you can't exchange, you're done. So the 1031 starts with the closing of the sale. Now, all you've done is what you normally would have done, and then you signed a few more pieces of paper. But that starts the clock on your identification period and your exchange period. From that date, you have 45 more days to identify your potential replacement property. You have a total of 180 days to close on that. But those first 45 are oh so critical because once day 45 passes, you can't change the list anymore. So if you negotiate on a property, you name it, and you can't get it under contract, but you're past day 45. I actually had a client this year who went back and negotiated on 3 different purchases that he lost out on.
Oh.
And he paid the people who ended up getting them more money just for the right to buy them.
Yeah, spend an extra 50 grand so you don't get whacked with 150 grand in
That's exactly right.
taxes, right? Yeah, oof.
I mean, that's a nasty day.
Yeah.
There's no way to make that day feel good.
Yeah.
But time tends to heal all.
So exactly. So keep going.
Yeah. So you find the property you want, you get it under contract. I tell people, don't think of the identification period as a period to simply identify. Think of that as oh my gosh, I got to have my property under contract because that's how you're going to start to mitigate risk.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, a quick hack for everybody, you can be under contract for your new property before your old property closes.
So I've heard about this, that, the advice I was given was exactly that is, if you're going to execute a 1031, you are highly advised to already have identified the property you want to buy before you sell.
Yeah, of course, it a little bit depends on what kind of market you're in.
Sure.
And I tell people, let the market speak to you and you tell me what's the hardest thing you're going to have to do. Do that first.
Right.
So right now we're still in a seller's market. It's tough to find good properties.
Yep.
So do the hard thing first. Go find your new property, get it under contract, then sell your old property. Man, it wasn't but 2 or 3 years ago where I had California sellers who would literally get their old property under contract before they even their new property under contract before they even listed their old property.
Right.
It would sell for a cash plus offer in 2 days and we'd close their purchase in a week.
Right.
Well, the market's going to change.
Yeah.
And when it becomes easier to buy than to sell, take care of the hard thing first. Get your old property under contract, then start looking for your new property.
Makes sense.
Either way, you're condensing the time frames. And that has an added benefit of decreasing the amount of time you're without cash.
Because that clock is a ticking. So one of the other things you said is actually a question I have around the way you handle the transaction from a financial perspective. So when I'm gonna use a real world example. You have a building that has appreciated by $500,000 over the course of 10 years, and you go to sell that, and so you're going to pocket, just for mathematic simplicity, that $500,000. You would like to take that money and 1031 exchange some, not all. And I'm curious if that's possible. In other words, I have a 4-family in here in Connecticut that I owe about $95,000 on. I sell my big honkin' 10-unit apartment building for $1 million. I make $500,000. I take $100,000 and I pay off my existing 4-family, and I take the other $400,000 and I 1031 exchange it. Can you do that?
Beautiful example. So the reinvestment requirements are twofold. You must, if you want to defer all tax, purchase at least as much as your net sale. In your case, that would be $1 million. You do get a deduct, closing costs, that kind of thing.
Right. And your
Worry
basis.
about that. It's $1 million sale. Yeah. You have to buy at least $1 million in real estate. You have to also use all of the proceeds from the sale to do that. So as part of the sale, you pay off $100,000 in loan. You're left with $900,000 and the need to purchase at least $1 million in real estate to do that. Now, you don't have to take out the same loan. You could simply add your own $100,000. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
As long as you do those two things, you'll defer all tax. So before we get to the real cool thing, it's important to understand that you can allocate those proceeds any way you want. So you could take that $900,000, you could turn that into the $900,000. You could turn that into 3 or 4 $500,000 duplexes using your proceeds as down payment. As long as you purchased at least as much as you sold, as long as you used all the proceeds. And one of the things that I'm counseling some of my investors to do now as a hedge against recession and the nasty interest rates we've got right now, which by the way, really aren't all that nasty. But
no, they're really not. I mean, historically, they're right on par.
Exactly. Is to say, take $700,000 of that, go buy a property for cash, then take the other $200,000 and use that as a down payment. So that at the end of the day, did you purchase at least $1 million? Yep. Did you use all $900,000 in cash? Yep. But now you have one property free and clear.
Right.
It's that basically out of risk. All you got to do is keep the lights on.
Yeah.
And the other property you use to make up that deficit in debt. So that can be a great little tool to do what I call diversify or expand your.
Right.
Now, here's another thing that you could do, and this leads into your specific question. This was what we just talked about, was in order to defer all tax. Mm-hmm. But if you got a $500,000 gain, let's say you're tired of debt. I just don't want it anymore. So instead of buying $1 million, I'm only going to buy $900,000. Mm-hmm. When you do that, you can use $900,000 in cash, no debt, boom. You will pay tax only on the difference between what you sold and what you purchased. So in your case, you have a $500,000 total gain. So you would pay tax on that $100,000 difference. You're still sheltering the tax on the other $400,000. And in your case, with depreciation and everything, that's between $80,000 and $150,000.
Yeah.
But you're still sheltering. But you turned a property with some debt into debt-free property.
Smart. That's brilliant. Okay. So I heard you say that there's a really cool thing that you want to talk about. So I'm gonna add. Well, let's go there next.
Well, that was just it. We were talking about the recession proofing of your portfolio.
Gotcha.
And flipping and flexing. Because remember that life cycle we talked about? Typically, the most common investor demographic that I run into is what I call the accidental investor.
Right.
They had no intention of it.
Right.
But they were two people in their careers who each owned a house and they got married.
Right.
Voila. They're now investors. And a few years go by and they think, wow, it's been kind of nice getting that cash flow.
Right.
Why don't we sell that property? Do the 1031 exchange, but instead of buying one, we're going to buy two. Because when I buy two, I get twice the cash flow. Right. Or in many cases, if I'm selling an expensive asset and buying two cheaper assets, I'll generate more dollars per square foot. Because I might be able to rent, say, a $100,000 property for $1,000 a month.
Yep.
But a $200,000 property only generates $1,800. Well, why not sell the $200,000, buy $200,000, and up my cash flow by $400 a month right there? So that's what I call diversifying.
Right on.
As you start to get tired, you start to sell 5 properties at a time and use them to buy one more expensive property. One of the multifamilies like you're moving into. Sell 2 or 3 duplexes. Time it so you can combine them into a larger 12-plex. It's beautiful. And then you turn that into even more passive and things like Delaware statutory trusts, wholly managed rentals, triple net commercial properties, all these kinds of things that satisfy you where you're at in the real estate cycle.
Very nice. Okay, so we are coming up on the clock here. So I want to get to a section that I affectionately call, because I am a college basketball nut bar, I call it the Final Four. So there's 4 questions I'm going to ask you, and they aren't that hard, but I'm always interested in how accomplished real estate executives and investors think about these things.
All right, so before you start those questions, because you're a basketball guy, I'm going to give you the answers right now.
Okay. And
they are the Final Four: K-State, 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 and who cares? What you got for me?
I would like to debate that because I'm a Villanova fan, but they had a down season, so I'm gonna hold on
I'm
to
with
that.
you.
Your guys had a
I'm with
hell of
you.
a run last year. So, all right. So, obviously, one of the things that we're always that I'm always mindful of is that I've been blessed with mentors and friends who have kind of thrown an arm around me and given me, shown me the 19 ways I'm screwing up, and most importantly, how to fix them. And so, I'm curious about your mentors, your coaches, the folks that you've trusted over the years. Who gave you the best advice you ever got, and what was it?
From a strictly real estate perspective, let me throw a name out and see if you recognize it. Carlton Sheets.
First program I ever bought in my entire life at 3:00 in the morning. Absolutely.
What I loved about what Carlton taught was that he taught you to do the work
Yep.
and you to keep an eye. Remember, originally it was always like invest within 15 minutes of your house
Right.
because nobody's going to watch your nest like you will.
Right on.
And remember, Warren Buffett actually took that a step further by saying, everybody says don't keep your eggs in one basket. I say keep them in one basket and watch that basket very well. So Carlton was a great early influence. Although, sometimes you don't want to let people know that there was a guru in my life, but that's
Right.
okay.
We
He
all
did
have
some
them.
awesome stuff. I hired an accountant 35 years ago. His name's Andy, so he's affectionately known as Turbo Andy. And he has walked with me through every step of my real estate journey. I am an accountant, but I don't do my own taxes
Right.
because I don't want to have a fool for a client.
Right.
And Turbo Andy's best piece of advice, first year I hired him, he goes, Dave, I see what you're all doing, but you got to stop and start paying yourself first. Deal with the rest later.
Good advice. It's something that, frankly, I learned the hard way pretty early on in my full-time career, and I'm glad one of my mentors, Charles Dobbins, told me the same thing. And it's thankfully I've now corrected that problem. So the other thing that I'm always curious about is, leaders, business leaders, civic leaders, whatever. They tend to be readers, right? And these days, consuming information, between podcasts and books and Audible books and, conferences and YouTube and all that. I'm curious, who are the authors or creators that you're paying attention to these days? And how do you consume information?
I'm still a reader myself because I'm slow, but that's okay. I like to highlight things and come back to them.
You're an active reader. Yeah.
It's so hard to listen to a podcast and scroll back. So I am a reader. I read the Proverbs once a month. There's 31 chapters in Proverbs. Most months, there's 31 days. There is more business wisdom inside there than has ever been printed in the world of man. And so I love this, the Proverbs of the Scriptures. Richard Marbury wrote what I think is the best primer on inflation and its impacts on business development, and real estate. And it's called Whatever Happened to Penny Candy. And you'll like it because it's written at a fifth grade level. So excellent. I understood it. And it's just such an awesome treatise on inflation. Followed up by The Clipper Ship Strategy, again by Richard Marbury. Most people don't realize this, but vast fortunes were made during the Clipper Ship time. It only lasted less than 2 years. How could that much money have been generated in 2 years? And so it's the impact on incubation, on being in the right spot at the right time, and how to identify those developing opportunities. Massive stuff. The Richest Guy in Babylon.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, it's a fun little book, but there's wisdom in that. Mm-hmm. And what I found, you're really speaking my language here. If I can put an encouragement out to your listeners, folks, nobody is teaching this stuff to our children.
Right.
They're coming out of high school. They don't know how to write checks, let alone evaluate a business. And the most rewarding thing I've done this year is I got a group of young men, all 17 to 19, and we get together weekly, and I'm teaching them how to do financial calculations. I'm teaching them what it means to be a businessman with ethics and morals, how to look after others first while looking out for yourself. And we're using The Richest Man in Babylon to teach them timeless principles about avoiding bad debt, knowing what you invest in, making sure that your residence is an investment, saving money for yourself. There's a whole generation of young people that need this. If you've got a way, find a way to teach it to those kids. We'll benefit in our retirement. Instead of pulling the plug on us, they'll give us a few more years.
All these books will be in the show notes. So if folks, because I wasn't familiar with Richard Marbury, so I'm looking forward to putting him on my reading list. So let me ask you the third of the final four. If you had to do it all over again, what would you do differently?
I actually answered this and got a lot of kudos the other day. Marry my wife sooner.
Excellent. You're talking to a guy who dated his wife for 8 years, but we were babies when we met. So I agree
awesome.
with that.
You know, really the only thing purely from a business perspective,
Yeah.
I would have started buying real estate.
Okay.
It is a long game.
Yeah.
And
So
let
true.
the long game work for you, boy, you'll win.
Yeah. I mean, I'm 54 and I bought my first property when I was 41. And gosh, I wish I had started it when I was 21. So I wholeheartedly agree with that. Okay. And now the hardest of the final 4 questions. When not talking about real estate, what else do you like to do for fun?
Oh, I'm a sailor, I'm a fisherman, and I am a road trip nut.
Yeah.
I will jump in my truck and I'll drive it. As a matter of fact, I drove from here in St. Petersburg to Colorado this last summer. And I just thought, I haven't seen Texas in a while. Let's go through there. And lo and behold, somewhere outside San Antonio on my Spotify playlist, a song by the Doobie Brothers came on called China Grove. Do you know that song?
I do know that song. Yeah.
Guess what? The first line is what? There's a sleepy little town down around San Antonio.
Yeah.
I turned off the freeway and found it.
Oh, that's fantastic.
That's what I love to do.
Oh, that's fun. That's fun. All right. Yeah. No, I'm a child of the 70s. My father is a huge record collector. So had all the Doobie Brothers and shoo. Yeah. I mean, the stack of vinyl in our house was taller than I am today. So, and I'm 6'4", so it was a lot. All right. So Dave, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I've learned a lot and I really do appreciate you bringing your wisdom and your big honking brain to this show and to our audience. If people want to learn more about you or your business or, anything else related to your operation, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
So early on, we recognized, like you said, this is such a little known thing, even though it's so powerful, that we created our whole presence based on education. Because I figure if I can educate people to see the power, I'm not going to have to look for business.
Right.
So we created an educational website called The 1031 Investor. And if you go to the1031investor.com, there's like a 40-part YouTube series that breaks this down into different topics. We've got calculators, calendars where you can talk directly to us and bring your situation to bear. And it's a great site. So the 1031investor.com. And then I think your copy must still be in the mail, but it's coming, I promise.
I look forward to
I'll
it.
make sure. Lifetime Tax-Free Wealth, the Real Estate Investor's Guide to the 1031 Exchange. I thought I was writing a how-to manual. As it turns out, though, it's more about how to achieve your dream based on your situation than it is simply about how to do 1031 exchanges. And we bring a lot of case studies to bear, including our story, so that wherever you're at, you'll maybe get some inspiration on, if I just do this, I'll benefit.
Oh, that's fantastic and incredibly generous. And I can't wait to read your book. So, Dave Foster, thank you so much for your time today. The 1031 Investor, I highly recommend you go to the website and check him out. And by the way, he's also on YouTube, and I've been watching him for quite some time, and I'm a whole lot smarter since I started watching his YouTube videos. So I suggest you go there as well. Dave, thanks again.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
This has been the Real Estate Underground podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. It helps us grow. Until next time, happy investing. This has been the Real Estate Underground. Don't forget to subscribe. It helps us grow. Until next time, Undergrounders, remember your real estate journey begins with a simple step forward. Now get to it. Bye for now.